This
Chairman's
conference will now be recorded.
Need approval for October 14th audit.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Dave.
Second.
Thank you, Cheryl. All in favor?
Aye.
Any noes?
Hello. Yes, hello. I'm in favor.
The bills. Second page.
So there are bills on there just because we didn't have an audit and finance meeting in November. So the ones that have asterisks on them, I've already paid those bills. The ones that do not are to be. So I'm basically asking for you to approve all of them. If you have any questions, I can answer them. There's also a lot of deposits for the same reason that you didn't get to see them in November.
Any questions? Anything out of the ordinary?
No, I don't believe so.
Motion approved.
Thank you, Jeff.
I'd second that.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No? Good. Okay. Review of the financials. Joe, do you want to go over this? Any changes, anything that you want to particularly talk about at this point in here? Anybody have any questions?
So there are the 2 months in
Okay,
there.
that's what I was gonna be. I'm like, why am I seeing like the same
Yeah.
thing? Like, what is it? God,
Yeah, so
October
you
versus
see November and October
Yeah.
because, again, we weren't here in November, so Jim had the reports for both months, so I gave them both to you. And then behind that is Jody's budget.
Our expenses were a little higher than our income for this past month, but overall we're up about $90,000.
97.
And that doesn't include the county's payment that the 63 we got.
So it's staying right around 150.
What's with the bad debt recovery?
On the P&L or the,
Yeah. What was that from? I'm just negative.
There is no recovery.
Right.
just the change from last year when we did recover versus this year we haven't recovered.
Right. Just one.
Yeah.
Is there, I don't want to belabor the point, but I mean, at some point, are we going to take a look at bad debt policy, or do we just?
We do we've done many times.
Yeah, I think the process is to leave it on the books.
I'm sure otherwise we have to leave it on the book, but.
Yeah.
We've already written it off. It's, I think,
Reserve.
it's reserved, yeah, in terms of the
Yeah,
write-off.
Right, exactly. Okay.
So it will forever be there.
Yeah.
Come to accept it.
Any questions?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We had that coming through in one sale.
Jody, anything you want to say? You were starting to, I know you were.
No.
That was it.
It was interesting, because I had a discussion briefly yesterday with Jim. And his comments was, he was kind of surprised that.
I think you need to speak up. Yeah.
He was pleasantly surprised that we had so much cash coming in. And I said, the problem with that is that it's not a recurring cash. We're working on a couple of projects again for next year. That would really boost that if they happen, but we've got to look at. But right now, we're doing.
Well, you could just stay in my world where you don't know how it's gonna be till you get through the day, you know? No, my long-term,
I would like to.
About the
not
hours.
stay in that world.
you could stay
I
there.
could not stay there.
I made a comment like that one time with the superintendent, and the teachers association suggested that one way to save a lot of money was for me to work for free. Didn't work.
We just don't have taxation, David.
That's the goal for next year, is to try to come up with new revenues.
Yeah, the revenue stream basically is, at this point, has been pilot payments.
Well, I would suggest that you, with your leadership, we become more active in economic development and getting things to move, and consequently, there's fees attached to that. You know, so we're developing, growing the revenue stream. We may not end up with living off rents from properties or whatever, but we remain active and increase the annual fees over time. You know, as long as we get the cash flow positive, we can keep going.
It's always been the IDA's way of.
Yeah, I'd like to do what you ended up in Amsterdam, having enough income from other stuff to pay your, you know, your staff. We'd like to do that, but I don't, what we're doing isn't broken. I think the great news is we have opportunities to do more. There's people required, you have things in the works. I mean,
Yeah, but I just think there's a time not too long ago where cash flow was dire, if you will, right? Just, right?
well,
And so I think just to your point is making sure that that income remains consistent, right? So that we don't get back.
I don't mean I wouldn't, like to have that, but I sleep well at night. When I have faith in the factory that's so big and it pulses, as long as I don't screw it up, it'll keep working. So I think, what you've done has really got us to where we are. We were negative cash flow after the crash, and it's been rebuilt. Everybody's, you're doing a good job. So I have faith in you.
The crash?
Well, the difficulty. the
Oh,
bumps.
gotcha.
I appreciate that.
So we got flat water.
We're sta-
We spent some time going
Stability, a lot
over
more
the
stability.
rapids. How's that?
It sounds to
Good.
me like we're suggesting that Craig and Jeff board put together some type of a long-range financial plan, don't you?
Sure.
Sure.
There's a auto dealership for sale, hospital for sale.
Moving on.
Moving on, thank you. Any new or unfinished business that you want to talk about, or we did that already, Jody?
The only one, I don't know if I put it on this.
Put two on.
Yeah.
Put the pilot for, Zayed Properties,
Yeah.
Josh's, and then the county appropriation.
Okay, so, we did receive a formal application from what Josh's project is.
Is that Zayed?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
He's anxious to move on. The bank wants to close before the end of the year, and he's looking to get his mortgage reporting. I talked to Joe Scott. Joe said that he would get all the documents for our next board meeting in December 3rd. And that because the mortgage recording tax is probably going to be about $18,000, we don't have to hold a public hearing on that. So that would solve that issue. I reached out to Joe yesterday. I haven't heard back. We could do some of the sales tax, because we do up to 100,000. To a public hearing. So if we approved another $75,000 in sales tax, we could begin buying supplies.
Is he working on a construction loan, or are they talking mortgage?
He's talking on mortgage.
Really interesting. Yeah, because normally the mortgage comes after construction when you know what your actual cost. Not my problem, so that's.
So just because do we actually have, does this qualify under our policy and guidelines?
I haven't done that analysis yet, nor have I done and it's going to be difficult to do a cost benefit analysis on it anyway, because it is a house. But I've got to do those before next week.
And can he wait to the December board meeting, I guess is the other second question I have. Is he comfortable with that? If they want to close by the end of the year?
Yes.
I don't know, are we going to have a quorum on the 23rd? Did we get enough?
That's a good question.
I don't know.
I'm planning
The
to log in
22nd,
from
whatever it is.
Colorado.
23rd.
And we can still vote.
I think I have like
Correct?
3 right now that I know are coming. Jeff Lord's tentative.
We can still vote remotely.
I can join remotely. I will join remotely on the 23rd.
Yeah, I'll be available on the 23rd.
Yeah, that goes up January 22nd, the remote, the virtual. I assume she'll extend it, but
Yeah.
Say that again, Megan?
the virtual attendance form, that goes up January 22nd. Or maybe January 15th, 2022. I might be getting the 22nd. But I assume she'll extend it, but I'll keep you guys posted on that.
But we're good for December anyway.
Yes.
So I would just ask if you could complete that analysis against our policy for that housing project,
Yes.
and then that way we have it ahead of the board meeting.
Yes. I'll probably get it done by Monday.
Great. Okay, so it looks like we would have a quorum as long as we can do remote.
Any concerns with not having a public hearing just because of the optics that this is a former board member of this body that just left? And then a month and a half later, we go and approve something. I have nothing with the project. I'm just talking about more of the optics.
It's not our first housing project.
No.
First housing.
What were the other ones?
The Spring Grove across the street.
Springbrook. So do we have another board member? Do we have an overview of the project? I'm sorry, I'm
That's what
what
he's
the
got to
project
get.
is. Have you
That's the
had a
analysis next week.
presentation or
Yeah.
a narrative?
I can send the pilot application. I mean, I don't know if you guys want to read through it, but I
Sure.
can send you, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, send it.
Some summary of it, other than what we kind of know. I don't know that we've discussed it in full at the meeting. I know you had a presentation on the Ford block, and you haven't had a presentation on this one, I don't think.
Right.
No, we have not.
That, yeah, from an office
So-
standpoint, I wonder if we
Well,
have.
and for an information standpoint is.
And then-
Yeah, but you must have missed that. He said he'd have it early next week.
Yeah, and
The church site.
if you look at my director's report,
Yes.
under Zaid Properties, it says that he wishes to build what they call Chestnut Crossings, which will be a 13-unit new construction multifamily housing building just off Main Street in Cooperstown. It's basically being designed as a environmentally sensitive building. The total estimated cost, I think, was $3.25 million. But I'll get you more information on it.
What about having Josh?
That's what we're saying.
available?
I think we should have them present at the next board meeting, so we have
Okay, sorry to
clarity,
do
so
that.
there's a public kind of opportunity to at least hear about the project, and then we can go through our analysis or our policy as it relates to that.
We'll do that in projects, right? Talk about that.
We won't
We
have
won't have it
one
today.
before,
If he wants to close by
Right.
the end of the year, we're gonna run a calendar.
so that would be this one is where we should have done it at. So whether we want to do a special meeting for that or put it into the board meeting. But I do agree, optics is an opportunity for him to present in a
Great
public
idea.
record.
Great idea.
And in the end, if he qualifications, if he qualifies.
Right, and then we're gonna go through our qualification process.
What's your preference? Do we have a special projects meeting?
We could do a projects meeting at 8, followed by the full board meeting.
That makes sense to me.
We'll see what he has and we'll, sure.
Yeah.
Let us know.
And we take action in the full board meeting, one way or the other. Okay, sounds good.
You talked about the county appropriation already?
Yes.
Kind of.
Thank you. You want to expand? Okay. Audit Finance Committee is over.
Sure, no one made a motion.
So moved.
Thanks, Dave.
For what reason?
I have no idea either.
Doing but you want to.
All right, we'll move into the project meeting. I'll forego the chairman's comments. Any questions on the project committee minutes from October 14th?
Everything's a motion to approve those minutes.
Thank you, Dave.
Second.
Thank you, Tom. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Taking a look at the project trackers, Jody, if you want to walk us through, I had a couple questions, but if you want to start with the Oneonta Rail Yard.
Oneonta Rail. Basically, most of the discussion on the Oneonta Rail Yard in the last month has been to try to entice Corning to look at developing a new campus there. Last Thursday, I had a Zoom meeting with them, and they did indicate that Oneonta is in their future, that they like what's been done at their existing plant. The last 3 expansions have moved really quickly. They're pleased with the work that we've done on that, and without going into any other detail, that looks like it's at least the possibility.
I won't ask for a percent of possibility, but.
On a scale of one.
So, yeah, exactly. So I know, I mean, previously, and forgive me for my memory here, because I feel like it's been a while since we really talked about, we were really focusing on just marketing, right, the land. Are we looking to move forward with any of the infrastructure improvements we've talked about? Where does that stuff stand? Is that a separate kind of project in comparison to the rail yards? We talked about cleanup, we talked about extending infrastructure. Where are we kind of from an IDA standpoint, where is our focus and our strategy, or is it just marketing what we have as is?
Yes and no. What we did budget, I think it was $30,000 to do a cleanup of the one site.
Right.
We did not move ahead with that. That will roll over into next year. We're planning on doing it starting in the spring.
Okay.
The other thing is that we're waiting to hear from the Mohawk Valley Economic Development District and Southern Tier 8 both put priority projects in for EDA funding under the Build Back Better America EDA funding. And on this is the one from Southern Tier 8. They list, Otsego Innovation Center with Iox's Custom Electronics and Otsego now as their number 2 project listing on the site. And that just doesn't include building an acceleration center. It also includes all the infrastructure for the remainder. It was roughly a $8.5 million request for funding for EDA. So I think that sewer, natural gas, and electric for the entire park. Mohawk Valley, with Steve Smith, also submitted an application for that region. And as opposed to looking at specific projects tied to, in this case, it was not this Southern Tier 8 tied it to energy type projects and innovation projects. Mohawk Valley did new development construction for new industrial parks, and it listed our project as one of those projects. We should hear sometime in about a week or two whether either of those projects will be funded. Now, because of what's going on in Washington, we're trying to pump out a round 2 of the $1 billion investment package. It's likely that EDA is going to receive a lot more money. And so even if these 2 projects aren't funded, there's a strong possibility that they'll take individual projects out of there and fund those. Our understanding is that's the reason EDA is so gracious to give us time to do the Litchfield Springs project, because they're ending up with so much money, they don't want to cancel any projects. They don't have a backlog of projects to fund. So we're optimistic that in some way, shape, or form, we'll get infrastructure monies from the federal government for the railroads. Now, with that said, we did not get an intern, but one of the things that we looked at is looking for an intern through, in this case, was Simeone. One of the projects that we looked at doing was identifying opportunity zone investors. And what we want to do is market this rail yard project to opportunity zone investors for future investments in development that they currently do. Some of them, like the one out of Massachusetts that we've been in contact with, do commercial development. They may be looking to do additional commercial development as long as it's in an opportunity zone. Basically, what they do is they have investors that have capital gains and they want to reinvest them in projects. So we'll be marketing that to those groups as well.
So it sounds to me like we're going to have an answer on plan A, which is based on either one of those 2 areas getting money to support the rail yards. And then we're going to have a plan B anyway if those don't come through.
Yes, and again, I don't want to, while there's the potential discussions with Corning on it, we can't rule out that that's not going to fall apart. So I want to continue with plan C.
So who's asking for this, for the sewer and gas? Where's it going if nobody's there? Get the funding. Just being extended? Who is Corning asking for the natural gas and the sewer? So where's it going? Because there's the whole plan itself changes everything depending on what somebody asks for, correct?
That's correct.
So we just get $8 million and wait, or we get $8 million and put a sewer that might not go there.
Yeah, and what is A, B, and C?
What is A, B,
What
and
is
C?
the order of A, B, and C, right? Like
There's several different factors associated with that. One is if we were to get the award, the first thing that would be is roughly $800,000 for the design cost to actually do detailed designs of the infrastructure. And at that point in time, we would approach Corning to see if they were seriously interested, should we be designing it around a specific building. The second thing is that we're waiting for contracts to be signed between Ramble Engineers and NYSERDA. They were expected to get those contracts next week to sign them. At that point in time, Ramble Engineers apparently is also the engineering firm that Corning uses in New York State. So we wanted to have Ramble approach them and say, listen, we're designing a geothermal system around the rail yards. Could we look at maybe designing it toward your building and get a third party interested in Corning?
So, I mean, what does it matter where they want to go? Why are we pushing them into the rail yards and not our park out, where industrial park or by Ioxis?
Originally, about a year ago, Corning approached me and wanted to know whether we could give them some advice on investing in an opportunity zone, because their existing plant is in an opportunity zone. And it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, and I'm not sure that their fiscal person called me about it, knew exactly all the details on opportunity zones, because it's for capital gain. You have to, if you get a huge capital gain and you reinvest it in an opportunity zone, you pay no taxes. After 7 years, if you keep it invested in there.
That's fine. So there's no opportunity zone in the other parks.
But the question comes up is, I can't imagine Corning having a capital gain, because you have to sell something off to get a capital gain, and I don't see them selling anything. But I don't know the financials there.
Evidently, they like opportunity zones, and if they want that one, I'd be happy, because I'm not sure, to me, that's not as marketable a park as Pony Farm. I mean, it's from an appearance.
From an individual business that might
Correct,
cross the path. Yeah. I mean, I think when you look at the rail yards, it's definitely a larger scale concept there.
And for me, to your point about infrastructure, what's one of the many things that stifles economic development in this region is a lack of infrastructure, public sewer, public water, high-speed internet, which is being solved a little bit, and natural gas, and to have a piece we're marketing on the market with no infrastructure in it, under it, whatever, even if it's got to be moved a little bit or hooked up. We're 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years away from, if somebody wants to come there, they're going to go someplace where they don't want to. To me,
Yeah.
they're prepared to compete. So,
And I think that's where I'm coming from, is trying to understand, what is our focus? Is it like, is Corning the focus? Is the innovation center the focus? Because if we do have kind of the already interested parties, then you can work more closely with their needs, as opposed to the reverse, where you get it shovel ready, which totally understand, and extending the infrastructure, and then market. But what you don't, from my perspective, right, to keep going to Corning and saying, what are your needs, what are your needs, what are your needs, without some kind of commitment, or about, like, you could be designing it for them because of course they want you to design it for them in case they make that choice. But if they don't make the choice, then you've just designed yourself into a potential need that's not going to be the next tenant's need, right? Or the next.
At this point, it's conversation with them. I mean, yeah, you don't want to do something you have to undo if they were interested, but it's got to be something anybody could have to.
Right, I'm just trying to find what's our plan and our focus for next year, right? So plan A is what?
In my world, we don't know. And I'm okay with that, because we got to move forward. When you come to the fork of the road, take it, we're not there.
I look at the amount of money we've already invested in it, right? And I personally want it.
To me, it's not suitable for entry into the race to get somebody to come here. It'd be 3 to 5 years before you would get it ready if somebody.
Totally agree, but if we already have 2 projects on the docket that we're saying, Innovation Center and Corning, that we're saying are right for that location, I would rather spend the time flushing that out and making sure that's the case.
Well, I think you got to.
And then you can do and prepare
This battle's being fought on more than one front. You have to do that, yes. While at the same time, you also have to be chasing the other one to see which one settles first. You can't put it all in one basket and say, this is what we're doing. We're not going to dictate to the.
We've already done the master plan, right? We've done that, right?
And where does that come in? That's important.
Yeah.
My next question.
That's one I was going to make, is that the MRB plan that was done, that's
Correct.
pretty much what we're sticking to. The road is an existing road. They have an estimate for what it will cost to reconstruct that, to extend water and sewer along that route. That's in that initial estimate. We have an estimate from New York State Electric Gas to upgrade the electric to maximum capacity, which is about another $1.2 million that they provided that to work with us. So those are the numbers that we put into the application, and that's the plan that we're planning on building.
So the focus then, right, the focus is to work forwarding the master plan, right? So the side conversation on Innovation Center, on Corning, are just possibilities,
Right.
but our focus is, and so when I go back to,
Original plan.
that's the
that we
master
had.
plan.
Thank you very much.
Change our minds.
Right.
Demolition is in there as well.
Right, so what I would ask for is an update to the project charter as we go into 2022 to understand in the project description what we're focusing on there. And then from a key objective, when we have prepare site for sale, I think to expand on that exactly in terms of what part of the master plan are we looking to progress in 2022. So just so we have clarity on what we're focusing on for that.
If you go back to the two applications that are in, right, the Innovation Center would in fact provide the money to complete the master plan as far as water, sewer, electric.
Right, so then the funding is a whole separate source, right? Like once you, then you figure out where the funding's coming from,
Bottom line
but
is
you're
whether
focusing on the
It's
floor.
the Mohawk Valley grant, which doesn't necessarily include an innovation center,
It
right?
is not the innovation center, just.
Both of those we'll know about. Both of those would help provide the funding to complete the master plan, which prepares that site for commercial construction. So
Yeah, the reason there's two different ones is that the Mohawk Valley just looked at, let's build a new industrial.
We get it. I don't think I need to.
Yeah, no, I think for me, the focus is right. Like, the funding source may be attached to something else, but our focus as it relates to the rail yards is to progress the infrastructure extension according to the master plan.
Yeah.
Is how I see that focus for next year. How the funding comes through, right, is maybe attached to something maybe separate.
that's
But
the timeline issue.
yeah,
Only funding comes through.
Yeah.
We go full board, get that master plan as far as roads. Who ends up in any of those sites is a different issue than completing the roads
Correct.
and the extension of roads. Okay, got it.
I have a question. Wondering how this discussion, if it does or does not have any bearing on the response to the draft audit from the controller.
The question about the rail yard, Patricia?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, having read that, I think the discussion that we're having is very appropriate because when you look at the optics and the amount of money spent, and I think that clear direction with the master plan is really important. And just wondering about, is there a discussion about that response? Is that a part of our thinking in further steps? Because they had some, I'm just not sure. I probably should have brought that up at the audit section, but I don't know if that was addressed. The response to the audit.
We have.
Patricia, we do actually have that under the new and unfinished business.
Okay, great.
We'll
Okay.
talk about that.
All right, great.
The response.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
If this money doesn't come through, can we just do like a large apple orchard down there or something?
Do you want to eat apples from there? Go ahead.
Start cider
Okay, so a little update to that project charter as we focus on 22 to be clear on where we're headed there. Richfield Springs Business Park. Another, and I'm probably going to reiterate here again, the focus being on just updating 22 to make sure that that is still aligned with our focus for 22, which is again, infrastructure extension essentially.
Big news on that is we did sign a contract with two. They actually emailed me a couple days ago, listing a bunch of documents and I started work. So that's the first couple of weeks will be a lot more work for us, but after that, hopefully they'll take.
Anything holding things up from the town or village perspective?
The town and village are basically, there was a change in the town supervisor. There's a new town supervisor and he is much more pro, let's get this thing done. Yes,
Yeah.
Dan Sullivan. The one sticking point we have is the town will take ownership of the water and sewer lines. They would like to take it after 20 years. Through the, and we said no, after we finish construction, you can take it over. So
Yeah.
we're gonna have our attorneys talk to their.
Okay.
Attorneys need to talk about that, huh?
Yeah.
I think what you said is pretty clear.
That's the
It ain't
response.
cost a thing. There you go.
That
Sign your
completely
name.
baffles me because in the first 20 years, you expected there would be no repair costs for that.
It doesn't.
And they get
It's
fees.
not
correct?
even a conversation.
And at 20 years, so they're not gonna get any fees.
We're not gonna own,
It doesn't make any sense. Okay.
we're not in the water sewer line
advocating
ownership.
In this time of infrastructure abundance of money,
And we have a revenue source.
water authority that takes care of all this stuff, and so towns and cities don't fight over it, because this is a bunch of foolishness.
Yeah.
It's parochialism.
The attorneys will settle this.
Yeah, it shouldn't need,
And most, and you'll, and you know it's true, I mean, this conversation about expanding our sewer, our utility stuff is not an IDA issue 99.999% of the time. Richfield Springs, you're dealing with part-time people that would have no idea what to do.
correct.
What we're talking about, the rail yards, is not an IDA, it is a city of Oneonta issue that has always been dealt with in that respect. And again, looking for funding continuously, that's fine, but the amount of effort that we're putting into something that benefits the city and benefits us, but benefits the city is ridiculous, so.
If we had
We
a
should-
county water
it should be
authority,
done. It's not even a question.
the Harwick project, try to do some sewer along the 20, so it's over their head. I mean, you know, and the town can water
It's
itself
just
for
time
12
waste.
years.
It's time waste.
Because you know, it's
We should
not-
just
otherwise-
focusing on the companies and putting the companies where
Anyway,
they need to be.
we just ran down a wrong trail.
Yeah, we're done.
Blah, blah, blah.
Look, your point is extremely well taken. We go out and get the funding.
No, we don't
put
have to
in-
do that. If we're part of it and need to put in a plan, we do that, but that's really, they have access to this funding. I set meetings with the
Oh,
county.
I get it.
With all this funding.
What you're
We do that.
saying is, we take the responsibility to put in the water and sewer, and instantaneously, the city gets the fees
Benefit.
for all of it,
Yeah.
without any investment whatsoever.
It's an insane conversation.
Yep, absolutely.
And you can speak up if you think it's different. You tell me if it's different.
We're gonna move on.
No, but to
Yeah.
your point, I think what you're trying to do is really, we're trying to manage something that we shouldn't even be managing.
Right,
You're saying, let's
right.
focus, and then we say, well, we don't have this. Well, it's not our 100% duty to be doing that. It is our property, we need help, but this is.
We're doing it because nobody's doing it.
Nobody will, yeah.
Well,
And that's fine.
there's a change in administration coming on, there will be a new mayor in January. They put a lot more responsibility on the city administrator. The county administrator meets with the city administrator every 2 weeks. The county administrator, he has a priority for economic development. So hopefully in January, we'll have a dialogue between the county, the city, and our office.
So I think first thing on the docket then is just discussing kind of infrastructure extension to property and understanding ownership responsibility, what role they're looking to play or they potentially should be playing versus what role we've been playing and potentially even hooking into this rail yard projects to understand, hey, is there something that they should be stepping into as opposed to us? Does that seem like a reasonable kind of?
Very preliminary discussion about
Very.
resurfacing the entire roundhouse road between the city and the county.
Yeah,
The county will, with the people, will play ball with us.
Yeah.
They did before, I got what's.
Yeah.
So it's just, and that was years ago. Should have just.
okay, so we have the project spreadsheet here. And again, this is just a good snapshot to understand things are in process, things are kind of completed overall. A couple new ones that we'll discuss that are looking to potentially go on there. Does anyone have any questions or any comments on the spreadsheet? Okay. Director's report, Jody, anything there you'd like to highlight?
Well, really the highlighted are also on that spreadsheet. Okay. Projects that were completed is advanced biotech, protective equipment, custom electronics and Cooperstown are both being closed out. Custom electronics actually just closed out last week. We got a notice from the state. We expect to get a notice on Cooperstown Distillery in the next week or two. And then Megan's working on closing out the micro enterprise grant program. And she had a small curve thrown at her this week.
We got a new project manager at the very end.
Okay, cool.
Told me that a whole bunch of different stuff in the previous project.
Interesting.
Hopefully that'll be.
And I'm just somewhat behind on getting the grant application for systematic power systems, i.e. IOXIS out. Hopefully I'll get the pre-application submitted next week. And it has to do primarily with the budget. The budget is a lot different than projects I normally work on because we're including the staff that they're going to be hiring as part of the project budget. Normally we just look at equipment, acquisition, supplies and materials, and we don't include staff as part of the budget. I checked with DHCR and they said, yes, you can include staff as part of the budget. So I've never done one like that. And I want to be very cautious about how if we do get this grant, how we release funds, because if we don't create those jobs, we're in trouble. So they've agreed that we would hold it similar to the custom electronics, but we don't advance funds until the jobs are created or expenditures are 40%. To the government development.
So their expansion, is it a physical increasing the building?
No,
I could sort of stuff in the building.
they're looking at buying a new piece of equipment for about $1 million. Cities for that equipment. And basically, they've designed a new type of battery out in,
Somewhere.
yeah, out in their other plant down south. And they want to move the production and the development and the actual production of that battery to Oneon. But they don't have the equipment to make it. So they're looking to purchase this piece of equipment that would actually help them make these new batteries. And they would retain, I think it was 22 jobs and create another 30 jobs over the next 18 months.
Great.
It's a good investment from where they were not that long
Yeah,
ago.
one
Yeah.
of you.
I have just a real quick question. That's on the Deed Street loss that appear on here.
I'm sorry.
The Deed Street loss.
Yes.
That happen to be on here. That probably was handled entirely by the city, correct?
That is what we handle.
And what's the benefit to the city to have done that themselves? Number one, I know it's a 40-year pilot, which the longest pilot I've ever heard of. There had to be the other cash benefit to them, correct?
Well, I think the benefit to them is eventually it will go on the tax bills. It was taxed.
Right.
The other benefit is that the developer did pay them cash money for them.
Right.
So they did get an infusion of cash into their coffers. It is a new development. I mean, even if you don't like low and moderate income housing, it is a substantial building being built in downtown, which does show to other investors that there is potential here. I do know, in fact, that the group that we met with out of Albany, they did look at a piece of property in Oneonta, and they are going to have discussions with the owner about purchasing it with another 100-unit apartment complex up there. That will not be low and moderate, the market rate apartments. And they looked at that site, what's being done down there, because while there's 64 units, they have a waiting list, I think, of over 300 people.
Once again, that's not good right yet. I mean, it's been,
Okay.
you build 200 homes, they get filled up.
Okay. Just a quick question.
Okay. All right.
As far as economic development, people spend their payroll dollars where they live. So the more they live here, the better.
Thank you for that. That's Tom.
I mean, that's why housing matters so much, because the days you ever need. You know, if you, for IDA, economic development, it is a huge infusion.
We just need more things on Main Street.
Well, not, well, something to spend it on. You have a small.
Okay, moving into new and unfinished business, the comptroller's audit.
Okay, I believe
Fantastic.
everybody's received a copy
Yep.
sent directly by this big controller's office to you on
Yep.
the audit. I prepared a draft response. I actually met with the auditors, two of the auditors on Monday, Monday, and reviewed the draft response. They said it was a very professional, concise jab at the state controller's office report.
Excellent.
The supervising audit person who was there said that he was hoping for a response like this, that a lot of the information they had put into their report and it was taken out by their superiors, explaining why. One of the auditors came back yesterday and he said he reread my response and it basically he said found no offense with it. He thought it was a very good response.
And you have the independence to respond in any way you see fit.
Yeah.
Yes. The one thing I would know is, and that they're gonna probably write a response back to my response, is that they were unaware of these project charges. And I said, to be honest, I was unaware that they were. Because there is no hard copy, there's no bound book that has all these project charters in it. It just so happens that I found them on my computer under Elizabeth's file. And I said, these are basically done once a month by the projects committee, so the board was kept informed of what's going on. Plus, look at how many studies have been done, the grant applications, they could not submit those without board approval.
I have no issues with your response.
Yeah, does anyone have any issue with the response or
No.
want to discuss the audit findings at all further?
No.
Patricia, do you have anything that you wanted to?
The only thing is in there, what do they recommend at the end of the report? I think they're kind of reasonable things and maybe should, I wonder how Jody feels about what they recommend for the board and officials for how to proceed. I think they're pretty reasonable and it might be helpful for us to keep those in mind in our discussions and have them ramped around their recommendations, which again are reasonable in moving forward. And I think the discussion that we had previously kind of turned us around back to the master plan and the guidance, which I think is going to be important. It's always hard to look back, especially when there were different people there and a different board. But moving forward, I think they have good recommendations. We shouldn't be getting and buying properties without a detailed analysis and understanding the partners. And moving forward, just what we were saying, working with county and other officials are going to be really important for us to do.
I can definitely include that. They said we can either include their response to that in this portion, in this response, or we can do it as a separate correction action. I prefer.
Well, I'm not saying necessarily for the response. I'm saying for our actions that we should understand their recommendations and when we move forward, be cognizant of that because I think they're reasonable.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't think it's actually a bad thing to put that in your response as well in terms of just,
right.
in your summary around the recommendations going forward is we will, these are the things that we will look to do or to improve upon. Yeah, I don't think that's unreasonable to put in there as well. And I think quite honestly, a lot of the stuff they had there, that's our intent and that's what we've been doing anyways. There wasn't anything there. I was like, oh yeah, no, we haven't done that at all. But to your point, I think response, the idea of expecting to have interested investors when you're going right into buying land isn't always feasible either, right? That's when you're looking at business parks and you're looking at getting sites to be shovel ready for the potential investors or for the potential tenants or, developers.
I think from that comments that one of the challenges I think we face in the short intermediate term, hopefully shorter term, is get something across the finish line where we house somebody new in an industrial park that we own. So all this preparation, which we have been doing and study this and study that, we actually build something.
Right.
And I think that the comptroller's office will look less critically if we actually have some results and quit getting ready forever. You know what I mean? I know we all want to,
Yeah.
but trying to find the right partners and whatever else to get something done.
Yeah. And I think, to the same point too, and I think we've been saying it for a while, is that buying isn't necessarily always the way to go either. There's not much left to buy, but right, like we've got some vacant properties. So, being really mindful of how do we make sure we utilize vacant properties before we kind of expend ourselves on potentially another purchase, which hasn't been on the table anyway, so it's not.
So the other, I think, positive thing about the controller's audit was they had to go back to try to find something.
Yeah.
They didn't say, this is what you're doing wrong right now, which is normally.
But anyway, we just answer and we work through this and get to the other side and get on what we're doing, right? Learn from it.
Yep. Thank you.
On Monday, the auditors did indicate that this is one of the best virtual offices to have ever done an audit in. I really appreciate the work that Megan and I supplied them.
Who said nice guys don't get ahead?
Well, the other good news about this is that some of the past records that he's discovered them and we've now cleared up that past issue with the auditors. And now we're moving forward on it, which is a good thing.
The last thing that they said was that they learned more from our office about IDAs than they've ever done before.
Which is scary in and of itself.
Yeah.
Never be people checking.
No, it's not to say that we didn't make mistakes. They just didn't find them big enough to write it.
Right.
And we corrected it as we went.
Okay. You should ask them to put that in writing.
Yeah.
It will not happen.
All right, moving on
So
to,
the other question is, you want me to sign this, or should I draft it for our chairman to sign?
I think you can sign it.
Yeah.
You've been doing it.
Yeah, you
I
have the work, all the
think you should
communication.
finish it up.
Because neither of us were here.
Yeah, it's true.
And when you say that,
We can both sign.
to give credit to the past board members who volunteered their time
Yeah.
and went through a lot, it was very clear that there was a lot of questions asked. And you were kind of partly halfway through there, and we questioned a lot of things, and we voted on a lot of things. And so past board members were good. I can't think of anybody that didn't give their time and give effort. So to say what happened in the past, we need to move forward with what they say. Those things that he said were done in the past, clearly done in the past. Hours and hours and hours of those things, hours that we're getting moving forward much easier than we were we're much easier now. But in the past, it was hours of conversation.
And that's what Jody actually pointed out.
He did. But when we respond and we say, well, we're going to move forward with, what your recommendations are, those recommendations, that was done, clearly done. Do you miss things? I don't know. But there were good people on this board before us, before me, that did a lot of good things.
Yeah.
So.
My point was simply this, that the next time they do an audit, it will be focused on more current, and you won't have to deal with
Hopefully,
hunting around for
We should be clear for
files.
hopefully there's enough IDAs around that they won't focus on us again for another 10
All right.
years.
Oh, yeah, they'll be back.
And if I bring one thing to this, I bring documentation.
And we have attorneys for that, and we see bills that were done. Attorneys did a lot of things with a lot of questions.
Yes,
to
yeah, there were a
attorneys.
lot of
So, when you take board members and try to make decisions to move, your CEO forward, which we do now, with good faith, always relied on our attorneys to make the best decision for us. So we do it legally on paper.
Absolutely.
I think as long as,
And those two are still here, so they know they were part of it all.
as long as you don't try to build a natural gas pump system here, we're probably okay.
All right, so moving on to next amp.
Can you
There was
remind
a
me
pilot request, right? Is that
what
there?
the megawatt capacity was on it?
I think it's 5 megawatts.
Okay, that makes, so they're looking at 3,300 per megawatt.
And so we've got their request. Have we put this through our qualification
No,
analysis?
and we're somewhat, I'm waiting, they have not submitted a formal application to us. They sent a proposal to us. Right. And I responded back that we'll consider your proposal once you submit a formal
Okay.
application, because that's what the state controller would say. Clear.
Back across the net with top spin.
I think they don't want to do the.
Cheryl loves it.
My gut feeling is they don't want to sign the application because we have a 1% construction fee. And if it's a $5 million project, it's another $50,000 in the shell. But right now,
It's the price of admission.
on our application.
Yep.
And their timeline is this spring, is it not?
Yes.
Yeah. So, but my only point was, I think we've had this brief discussion about pilots are different depending on whether it's housing, et cetera, but I think we agreed that this format, did we not, of X amount of dollars per megawatt was acceptable?
Yeah,
This
we
is-
voted on that last time, right? With that schedule, or
Right.
did we not?
Yeah.
The payment per kilowatt hour is
We
low.
did, yeah.
Right, what we would recommend.
Right.
And that's based on my service standard policy. We looked at, I think it was Herkimer County that did a similar one, and they hired them with their proposal to do.
Higher than the 3,300.
Well, they just made an offer. We're going to counter.
Right, exactly.
So.
Do you anticipate, one last quick question, them waiting till 2022 to formally submit an application?
Well, hopefully not. I met with John Hammond. He came in, he's a consultant that solar energy projects. And apparently he's the one who did the RFP for developed it. And he said that the existing college president wants this project done before she leaves. So he was going to tell them to get our application. So hopefully we'll get it before the end of the year.
You remember, these are tracker systems, not standing,
Yeah.
stable.
Okay, any other questions on next amp? So we'll just at this point wait for the pilot application. Again, once you get that, you can make sure you do the qualification analysis. and bring both to us at the same time. Are we gonna learn how to pronounce this, or are we just gonna?
Say it.
Say it.
Zayed?
Say it.
Okay, properties pilot application. Have we gotten a formal application?
Yes.
Okay. So we just need to put that through the analysis, and we talked about next meeting, or whether we do the projects ahead of time for
And
there to be a presentation and that
Megan will
analysis.
try to email it. But somebody-
Yes. Well, I knew I couldn't send it out yesterday, so I will definitely send it out.
Okay. Can you maybe hold on that and wait and also do the analysis?
Send it all.
Send it all at the same time, so we have both pieces together? Okay, perfect. Any other new or unfinished business? I'm just noticing there's a homes and community renewal letter here in the back. Is that something that we need to discuss, or?
Oh, I didn't know.
You send it to me, so I.
No, it's that's what the project's called.
Okay, perfect. Anything else new or unfinished for project? All right, let's take a motion to adjourn.
No move.
I won't do seconds.
That's okay. You do.
Right. Round of governance, Andrew, so you're up.
That one more time.
You're up.
We can hear you.
Oh, for governance.
Yeah.
All right. So are we, for governance, are we gonna go right into executive session? Is that the
So,
intention?
Oh, we got approval of minutes.
oh, there is minutes in there?
Approve the meeting minute.
No move.
Second.
Thank you.
So now,
You do it, I'm not sure you want to.
I would do the new and unfinished, that way if we go into executive.
Yes, I didn't
And
know
we
there
can
was
just adjourn.
So on the new and unfinished, we have the conversation around going to bi-monthly or quarterly meetings. I love bi-monthly. Is that twice a month? I don't know where this, or who, was someone researching that?
That was
Interview
me.
by bylaw?
Jody and I are discussing about, our monthly meetings. And we come in and the meetings are 15 minutes. Because we do a lot of the work here. Does it make sense? And I asked Jody from a regulatory, from a standpoint of what he needs from us, what his team needs from us. Do they need a monthly meeting? And a lot of times, no. The question is, so I asked him, do you need us to meet every other month? Do you need us quarterly? Because it would make it more robust. When we come here, we're all spending our time making sure it's worthwhile. So we were looking at, proposing going to what do you recommend?
So you're talking about full board meetings?
Full board meeting. Project committees and the audit.
Stay as
meetings stay as it, but it's going to that as a quarterly, because then it would be, bring more things, more actions, more things we would have to process.
So what we're talking about a little bit, it may make sense to start the year on a bi-monthly meeting, every 2 months, have a board meeting. And if we don't have anything, we should look at doing a quarterly meeting. Unfortunately, what ends up happening is things come out of the blue, like Josh's application for. We didn't expect to have a board meeting the day before Christmas Eve. It's just, everybody's gonna be away.
I think that point as being able to service our customers might be part of it, but, if you set it up every other month, then you can have, all of us understanding if there's things to cover, well, a meeting, we show up the month in between. I mean, flexibility might allow us to not have all the meetings, maybe have 9 instead of 12, or 7, whatever.
So you're saying leave it monthly and then just cancel it? if-
Well, I would leave it every other month and,
Okay.
not an emergency board meeting, but we have a little special meeting, on that date it would have been and kind of in our schedules. But if we don't have to, there's nothing to do. For a 13-minute meeting, there's no sense really coming.
Yeah, I would definitely say the last few meetings, we really haven't had much. I guess I'm just trying to reflect a little bit in terms of the timeliness of some of the approvals needed at the board level. Would that hinder, or do we feel like going bi-monthly would hinder our ability to respond or to make those approvals at all?
I think we'll find that we will adjust.
The biggest issue,
to the new schedule, and we'll just adjust our schedule.
in order to have a special meeting though, you have to publish it in
Mhm.
8 days. What is it?
It's 3 days.
Is that all it is? Okay, good.
Okay.
And you just have to give the paper notice, they don't have to.
Correct.
I would make a motion that we move to a bi-monthly schedule for 2022 for a full IDA.
Okay,
board.
so I will have to check with Joe Scott, and we may have to amend our bylaws.
Yeah.
Do you want to vote and then with approval from Joe Scott that we, so we
Yeah.
can move that
Bring it to
forward?
the board.
Yeah. So that we don't have to do another board
I will
vote?
add my motion contingent upon approval from council.
And the worst case scenario is we could just, as Jeff was indicating, we just say, back up the meeting this month.
Yeah, you could leave it in there monthly and then just cancel.
Yeah, I'm either way, whatever, for convenient for the person calling the audible.
But we know.
You want to schedule it and not have it? I mean, maybe that complies with not having changed the bylaws.
We know in March, we're gonna have to have a board meeting, because that's the month we do all of our. Reports to state agencies.
Right.
Mhm.
So,
So January, next February, and then March.
No, I will second the
But we
motion.
do a lot more discussion at the committee.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, that's where the works, yes.
Kirk today is a prime example.
We have a second and a
Motion.
first and a second.
Want to call a vote, Andrew?
So we have a first and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
I would make a motion to go into executive session.
The purpose of salary.
Personnel.
Personnel.
Well, not yet, well, that needs to be-
Well, are you gonna adjourn?
So, yeah, we can adjourn the meeting in a meeting because it'll be voted on next week.
Okay.
All
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm gonna stop recording, but